So my name is Triffany Hammond, and I am mainly a support and resistance trader. And what I like to do is drill down, starting with a larger time frame, down to the smaller time frame. And really, the whole intent behind all of that is putting price action into a larger context, so it makes sense on the shorter time frame that I like to trade. Now, I like to trade the 1 hour chart primarily. I do like patterns on the daily and the 4 hour charts. But since my primary trading comes off of the 1 hour chart, I drill down from the daily to the 4 hour to the 1 hour. But what I'm about to show you could do from the 1 hour to the 30 minutes to 15 minutes, so on and so forth. You get the idea. But the main thing I want to impress upon you guys right now is that everything I'm about to talk to you about is strictly in regard to price action. You'll notice that I've got nothing else on my screen. And I think that, whatever you decide to use as a tool on your screen, on your charts, is fine. But I really do believe that good trading comes from a strong foundation in understanding price action. So we'll talk about the dollar-yen first, because we talked about this last week. We've actually talked about it quite a bit the last couple of weeks. And from a fundamental reason, we know that the yen is just way too strong. And Japan really needs to weaken the yen. And several weeks ago, we started talking about that if Japan was going to intervene, that we needed to start expecting some sort of verbiage that started to guide the market in that direction. And we did start to get that last week, a little bit the week before, more so last week, and we're hearing it more and more come out of Japan that, they're serious this time. The yen has to weaken. And I think a lot of what they're trying to do is just based off of conversation alone. It's always their first step of intervention. They're always trying to just convince the market that that's a wise choice. And so I think we're seeing a lot of that now, and we really are seeing a lot of that in our price action as well. You can see how even though price came down and broke this old support level, now remember we talked about this severe support rejection when this was happening. Price did make a little run here at it. Couldn't hold on, the yen strengthened again, but look, it really didn't keep strength, it didn't hold strength for very long and immediately showed an even deeper price rejection than we saw before. This is all on the daily chart. In fact, if we zoom out even a little bit more, you can see that the market's very uncomfortable playing with these lows. I mean, this is lower than it's been in a very long time. So that's important. What we're reading then out of price action is the market sentiment that says, yeah, we went this low, but we really don't like being here. The other thing we can see in here is off of this price rejection, we really got a lot of enthusiasm for the long side of the trade. On the pull back, even though these are pretty good sized candles, much better than these little undecided ones in here as we were hitting these old lows back here, they're still not as enthusiastic as the bullish candles. So even though we get a pullback, as long as these short side candles don't look as excited for the short side as the long side candles looked for the long side, then I'm going to continue to hold a bias to the long side, because that seems to be where the enthusiasm is. Now, what I like to do next then, recognizing that I am now kind of back in this range that formed itself, and I can even stretch it out a little further to grab these wicks and the tops of these bodies, right? And this becomes the range that we're looking at. I'm actually right back inside of that area of indecision, right? I'm right back in that spot where price paused before. That's kind of important because anything outside of this range is going to be pretty definitive by the market. So what I like to do next then is go down to the 4 hour chart. And if you've been trading with me for a while, we talk about, I always say we, like I've got somebody here that talks with me. Me and the mouse in my pocket, I guess. We talk about this triangulation that happens, and this isn't just strictly with the yen. This is what pairs across the board, and it seems to happen much more frequently in the Forex market than it does in the equities market. But generally what happens is we get a really nice wide swing, usually a good area of rejection, both on the resistance side and the support side, and then immediately followed by a new lower high, a new higher low, and we start to see things get really tight in here. Now, what I did on the yen and what I'm willing to do again on the dollar yen, what I did is I came down to the 1 hour chart and I identified within the context, remember we're putting price into a larger context, within the context of this wrapping up, of this indecision, of the kinetic energy that starts to build up inside the pair before it breaks out, I identified what I like to call a muddy area. And these are areas that, where price kind of showed a certain amount of conviction. Let me see if I can find the exact price. You can see here where, price really kind of used, and if you maybe need to go out to the 4 hour, there we go, that's better. You can see where we've got this, which became resistance here, was at one point pretty strong support, right? And in between this pause and this conviction, we had this muddy area. My signal to go ahead and go long on that was the first candle that showed conviction in the direction of that trade, and in fact, it was this candle yesterday morning. And then things went sideways on me for a really long time. And then it moved while I was sleeping, so I couldn't capitalize on the trade like I like to do on my money management. And it's actually now hit my profit target at 89.80. The reason why I went for 89.80 is I wanted to come in just below. I was shooting for the secondary high. I wanted to come in just below the even number, right? The double aught and the .50 mark seem pretty significant in the yen pairs, where on regular pairs it's pretty much just the even numbers. So my profit target on this first trade is already over. However, because I have this overall bias to the long side, and because I have significant support rejections on each new high or low, I'm completely willing to take a close back up above this box. In fact, with all the distractions of the last seminar or the last webinar kind of melting into this one, I meant to actually put a position on. My first positions are really, really tiny, and I'm not making a trade recommendation to you. I'm asking you to take the information I give you today, to watch it, see if it's something that you think you might be able to trade, see if it's something that makes sense, that you could build on in your trading. I never, ever, ever want anybody to just blindly follow what anyone else is trading. I want you to always make your trading your own, and I think you'll find much more success there. So let me see what we had for the psychological questions. Not many. I'm actually surprised because last week there were so many. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Harley. That's nice of you. Let's see. It was at Dern and levels of different currency pairs, also gold and crude. I'm not sure, is it Taycon? I'm not sure what you're asking there. So you can clarify for me. I'm more than happy to get back to your question. Fuji says, people say trading is like running a business. If you cannot go through the first 6 months, it's more likely you're going to be done. Are there any thoughts on that? Actually, Fuji, I do kind of I agree and I disagree with that. On the one hand, I agree that trading Forex for a living, you have to run it like a business. But I don't necessarily think that your first signs of success are anything that is really quantifiable, because the road to becoming successful at Forex really can be quite long for people. And this is one of the things that I really express to my students constantly, and is that when you've decided to trade Forex for a living, you've asked yourself to do more than just trade a little bit on the side and make a little bit of money, even though that is one of the primary reasons people get into this. There are so many books out there that says, follow the system, you can make some money, because, oh, okay, I can do that on the side, that'd be great. Maybe one day my account will be big enough and I can live off of that too. But trading for a living is not an easy thing. And if you treat it like a hobby, you're always going to have mixed results. At best, you'll be a break-even trader. Usually you'll end up getting impatient with it and either blowing up your account or just giving up. If you decide to become a trader, you really have to be willing to take a look at the lessons that pop up from your experience in trading. If you look back to any major change in your life, I'm sure you've done more than your fair share of smacking yourself in the forehead going, I thought this was going to be a new change, a new beginning. Why am I here again? Why can't I seem to learn this lesson? And that could be, showing up in job after job, relationship after relationship, physical, moving from one home to another. It can show up over and over and over again. And I think what really happens is that when we're faced with major change, we have to address the same things in our life that we either failed to address before or were unsuccessful at resolving before this major change. Forex is no different, and that's one of the things that I think really comes as a surprise to anybody who's trying to learn Forex, and that is that once you start learning it, all of the chinks in your armor become really, really obvious. I've had so many students go, I never considered myself to be a fearful person, and yet I can't pull the trigger. Or the opposite end of that, I never viewed myself as being a greedy person, and yet I can't get out of a trade. I stay in because I want to get that up to that last pip. What's happening is that all of those things that you thought you knew about yourself, that you kind of subconsciously knew about yourself but never really wanted to believe, all of those little monsters in your life are rearing their ugly heads and really making you face them. Because of that, Fuji, I think that learning to trade for a living doesn't necessarily mean you failed after the first 6 months. It really can be, you can become successful, but that learning curve is going to be very, very different for each person who takes on the challenge. I hate to put a timeline on anyone's success because I've worked with people that just seemed hopeless in their first year. And, we tried everything, and then one day they just decided that this was the way they were going to work around this little hardship they had created for themselves, and they had a breakthrough, and things really took off for them after that. So, but I really discourage people from treating it like a hobby. You really do have to put a routine in place that you follow every single day so that when things go bad, you've got the routine to fall back on that is healthy and good for your trading. You have to stick with it. You have to be disciplined, and if you've decided to trade during these hours in the day, trade during those hours in the day. It's not something you can just do kind of, haphazardly. Shorty FX is asking me, where would I enter and exit a trade? I usually, if I'm awake for it, I'll take the close outside of my support and resistance area. If I miss the close, I'll take the bounce. Let's see. Last week you spoke to the fact that through trading you get in touch with yourself, learn from yourself and how you react and is difficult for some people. Yeah, thank you for reminding me, Harley, where the conversation left off, because I think it's really, really super important that we remember no matter what system we're trading, we are the ones pulling the trigger. If we can't be responsible for our own actions before, during, and after a trade, then no matter the slight from the broker or the slight from the mentor or the confusion in the teacher or the book or the whatever, regardless of any other pitfall that you might be able to or tempted to point your finger at, you always have to end up pointing it back at yourself. You always have to turn around and take full responsibility for what you're trading and the decisions that you're making. And the really scary thing for me, and what I see people who've been trading for a long time who finally recognize that it's this personal stuff that they need to address that come to me. For a good number of years, they've had kind of this list of things they should be doing. They know they should have a routine. They know they should be back testing. Yeah, they've kind of back tested a little bit. They know they should be keeping a journal and reviewing it at the end of the week. Yeah, and I did that for a little while, and yeah, it seemed to work, but the fact of the matter is, folks, trading is hard work. It takes diligence, it takes commitment, it takes a whole heck of a lot of self-discipline. And it isn't until you put those things in place that you're really going to start seeing some of the things in your trading that will encourage you to trade more and get better at it and keep working at it. What gets in the way, though, and this is what is so difficult to get past, are all of the little internal beliefs you have about yourself, about money, about wealth and abundance, about trading in general. You have to start from that. It has to come from an introspective place first. It has to come from a deep understanding of what's holding you back in your belief system first. And then you can launch some of the more quantifiable and physical things in your trading. Because then you're going to have a brand new frame of reference. You can put all of those things in this new frame for yourself. And they're going to make more sense. You're going to know why you're driven to do this thing over that thing. You're going to understand some of the safety measures you can put in place to keep you from over trading or, any number of things that get in people's way. So absolutely. And AB makes a good point, I think, when what Fuji's talking about, excuse me, with the business, the business comparison. AB says that 6 months after you know what you're doing, you might be able to say that. And the question there becomes, how long do you know what you're doing? And what you're saying, AB, is exactly right. And I think we can all agree that, a doctor doesn't just hang a shingle and bam, they're a doctor. I suppose some do, but it's illegal and they get caught and they hurt people along the way. But, there is a learning curve. They go to school for years and years and they study their craft and they practice it and they do it in a supervised environment. And, they have a team of people around them and, there's all kinds of things, teachers, lawyers, accountants, whatever it is that you're doing for a living, you didn't just go, you know what, I think I'm going to try that, and I'm going to actually have the expectation that I'm going to make money right away. So, certainly allow yourself the learning curve, and then maybe give yourself 6 months, but that learning curve could take so long. Shorty FX, what I like to do with my stop loss is I call them minor support and resistance levels. So for the stop loss on the trade I took, for example, where this candle was the breakout here, there is my one minor support and resistance level. Here is my second one, and I put a little bit below there. But that's what I like to do. It's going to, really depend on what you like to do. I strongly suggest back testing. Those of you who keep coming, you hear me say it every week, and you're probably sick of me saying it, but back test, just consider it, I don't know, spring training, boot camp, whatever you want to consider it, for your trading. Give it a lot of good practice so you know what your preferences are, what you like. There are some trades that I'll take that, because it's on a longer term chart, has a really deep stop loss. And even if you adjust your lot size to accommodate that stop loss, psychologically knowing that you've got a 300 or 400 pip stop loss can really be difficult for people who aren't used to seeing that kind of stop loss. I mean, imagine me talking to a trader who trades a 5-minute chart, and I'm talking about a 4-hour head and shoulders. They're looking at 20, 30 pips as a stop loss, and I'm looking at, maybe 300. That's not on every pair, but certainly on a yen pair, right? That's going to be a huge shift in paradigm for somebody like that. So, you have to find what's going to be comfortable for you, for sure. Oh, I hope I pronounced your name right. Yaqui or Yaqui? Are there exercises or rituals you go through each day before or after you trade to clear your mind? What a fantastic question. First thing I do every single morning is meditate. It's the very first thing I do. I have to start my day clear-headed. And, I wake up and I've got the last dream I was dreaming on my mind, and I'm, trying to interpret that and see if there's anything I can learn from that. And it really has a tendency to kind of cloud my mind, even as I'm just getting my water for the day and my morning vitamins and things like that, so that as soon as I'm up, I spend some time in meditation. I've got some practices that I do for myself. I don't even open the charts. I don't even look at the charts. Even if I have a trade on, it is not the first thing I do in the morning. It can't be, because I am not mentally awake, aware, alert, or capable of making really good decisions just out of, first thing in the morning as soon as I wake up. So that's part of my ritual. What I recommend to people, though, meditation isn't for everyone, and I understand that, but what I do recommend is that they give themselves some lag time between the time that they worry about a trade and the time that they check a trade. And what that could be is you go back to your trading plan and you see the trade as you took it. Did it follow your rules when you took it? If so, you're going to be prepared to, when you look at the chart next, you're not allowed to beat yourself up after that. You've established your rules. You're going to stick to your rules. Even if it's a losing trade, pip-wise, as long as you didn't do anything irresponsible with your money management, with your entry, with your exit, you didn't do anything impulsive in the middle, and you traded safely, I like to call that, even if it's a losing trade, I still like to call it a good trade because you did what you promised yourself you would do with it. Trades, when my students come to me and they go, I just did the dumbest thing. I can't believe it. I was so certain this was going to go. I totally over-leveraged myself. I can't believe I did this. Of all people, I know better. What I encourage those people to do as a ritual, when that happens to them, I encourage them to go back rather than dwell on this one loss. Now, these people can have a week of winning trades, winner after winner after winner after winner. And this one trade, usually because it negates all their wins, right? They got greedy, something like that. This one trade, though, more than financially wiping out all the good they've done, psychologically they've wiped out all the good they've done. And my students will put more energy and thought and worry and fret into this one losing trade than they do all of the winners before it. Think of what that does to yourself. I mean, you're basically reestablishing all those old fears, all those old, those horrible little monsters that rear their ugly heads. You're telling them all, you were right, I was wrong, I am a loser, I can't do this, this is too hard. I shouldn't have done it, I know better, I have no self-discipline, this is not something that I can do, and you just tell yourself that over and over and over and over again. And then what do you do the next time you take a trade? You tell yourself that before you take the trade, during the trade, after the trade, and you replay that over and over in your head. So what I suggest, instead of doing that, I encourage people to really dig in deep to the winners. Really dig in deep to when their rules worked, when they stuck to their rules, how proud of themselves they were that they stuck to their rules. See, we tend to just say, well, yeah, but that's what I should do. I'm not going to congratulate myself for something I should do. Well, it's a good thing to congratulate yourself because you're sure going to tear yourself down when you don't. And then on the trade that went sour, go back and imagine yourself making all of the good decisions that you know you're capable of. Imagine the trade had turned out, even if it would have lost anyhow, imagine that you would have managed it the way that you know you could have, and let that be your last memory of that trade. You're not fooling yourself. You're just saying, I know I have the capability to approach my trading with discipline and respect and keep my account safe. And over time, it does take time. It takes a lot of practice to turn around those negative thoughts. Over time, you'll make little inching movements in progress toward changing that underlying belief system that you just can't do it. Yeah, people should all over themselves. I should do this. I should do that. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And, it's funny because we can know all of those things, but as soon as we tell ourselves should, suddenly it's this big obligation. And the little kid in us is going to fight it off and going to say, but no, I don't want to. Or I was going to anyway, and now I don't want to. There's like all of these little things that come up in our consciousness that make should a really difficult thing. In fact, I have gone so far as to play the mind game with myself when I have a lot of things that I know I need to get done. And I'm feeling overwhelmed by it, and I don't even know where to start, and I don't want to look at any of these things I should be doing. I put at the top that these are things I can do. These are my options. These are my choices. And then it becomes like a game. how many of these things can I do today? How many of these things over time can I integrate into my routine? This is an option, that's an option. And that's a little mind game I play with myself that has worked for a couple of students as well. Change it from a to-do list to a can-do list. Do you agree that as a new trader, high leverage and high volatile cross rates are their worst enemy? If their problem is greed, yeah. I think their own worst enemy is a blindness to their own weaknesses. A market simulator is useful. Yes, Deja Vu, absolutely. I strongly recommend backtesting to people. And if backtesting, the word testing for some reason creates a psychological block, call it trading practice. Go back to practice your trades. See if they work. How do you evaluate momentum behind the price move? Over time, I have learned to kind of identify significant consolidation areas, and I have a way that I like to trade to the trend side of that. And then when the consolidations start to look irregular, I'm looking for momentum to the opposite side. I do have indicators on some of my charts, an 800 simple moving average and a MACD with just the default settings. They're nothing fancy because my main tool is price action. And then, momentum, I just over my course of trading long enough, I've just recognized, when a trend is kind of fresh and when a trend is tiring out, and I look for momentum into the opposite direction. I don't really use those indicators on my charts to determine that for myself. ShortyFX asks, how much a percentage of your trading capital do you risk per trade? It does vary. My first position is always, sorry for the bold. Are you shouting at me? I know you're not. I'm just giving you a hard time. My first position on a trade is always 0.5% or less. Always. And that allows me to enter into the trade. I don't have to be fearful of pulling the trigger because I don't stand a lot to lose. And then that's what my problem with this trade was. I didn't have much on, and I slept through all of the opportunities to capitalize on that trade. So anyway, that happens sometimes. What do you do in between when you're waiting for a trade to develop? Do we watch TV, etc.? Well, I've been working on my book. I do like to backtest. I'm a much better trader when I'm still backtesting. And it seems like for every idea I have for my backtesting, I end up with 30 more ideas that could go along with it. And I think it just helps keep me in tune and, I think just attuned to the charts and price action in general. So I do a lot of that. What else do I do? Well, I've got a family, so I do a lot of stuff for my family, volunteer at the kids at school and things like that. So admittedly, I'm not very good about just taking time out for myself. I'm much more likely to go read some fundamental article and then tweet about it than I am to just go take a walk and be good to myself. That's something I have to work on really hard, is remembering to do good things for myself. Harley seems that when I walk away a few minutes later, I missed a good move. If you trade on the short-term charts, it can really feel like that. I think that's why I like the 1 hour to daily charts. I've tried trading the 5-minute charts, and it seems like you can wait just as long for that breakout on a 5-minute chart, but then it is, if you've walked away at the wrong moment, you've missed it. And I just feel like a slave to my computer when I trade really short term. Not everybody feels that way, but that's just me personally. Galuska says, and one has lost before they started with losing attitude. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're so right. ShortyFX says, do you think the dollar-yen will go back to the carry trade? The dollar-yen, maybe not so much, but I can see potential in the carry trade resuming against other pairs. The euro is not looking so hot right now for obvious reasons. I mean, they've just had one country after the other come out with bad news. But the pound yen, the Kiwi yen, even the loonie yen, I think will make a good carry trade at some point. I think what's going to be difficult for the carry trade in particular, though, is it's going to take a really long time for the market to feel comfortable enough to hold that kind of trade, because it's more of an investment type trade as opposed to, a swing trade. I mean, you can obviously play those pairs and make a swing trade out of it, but generally carry traders like to, buy and hold on something like that. And I still do think we're about 6 months, even a year out maybe, before we start to see true signs of stabilization and improvement in the world economy. So I think it's going to be a while. I'm not looking for that anytime soon. AB says, here's a weird question. After trading for a while, you still take the trades according to your system, which you've tested, but you lose. What clicks at a later date? Will your digression suddenly see things better? I'm not quite sure I'm understanding. Let me read it one more time. Oh, okay. I think I understand your question. Well, I do have my times when I have a string of losers. I think it makes a really big difference because usually the way that I trade, if I'm wrong, I'm usually wrong right away. It's really rare that it takes days and days for a trade to be wrong. So my first position being so very small, I don't take a psychological hit every time I take a loss anymore. I used to. And a lot of times if my system is starting to fail on one pair in particular, if it's failing across the board, then I have to really take a look at myself and say, am I still following my rules? I have to go back. Did I take the trades that I planned? Did I jump into any impulsively? And I have to go back and look at all those things that point the finger back at me first. But there are times, too, when I've had a string of losers that I've had to go back and say, well, is this possibly a sign of changing market conditions? Right? Could my system be faltering a little bit because the market is entering into a consolidation phase, and I've been trading my old trend style? I had to do that in January. I had to change my mindset over to my consolidation style, and which really the style is still very much the same, but my profit targets become more conservative, and I'm much more willing to play things both directions and things like that. But those are things that you do kind of develop over time, and you just say, well, what does this mean? What does a string of losers really mean to my trading and to myself and to my system, and make adjustments on that later. So I don't know that there's any sudden thing that clicks into place and I go, oh, okay, I can get back into this. I think that's just I've had a willingness to look at what it is I do and how I can improve that in the conditions that the market's giving me now. Because generally that means a string of losses generally means there's some change in sentiment overall. I don't know if that makes sense for you or not. I mean, sure, there have been times that I've had to just say, you know what, my head's not in the game, but that usually doesn't really have much to do with loss after loss. That usually has to do with the fact that for some reason I'm just not seeing setups. Things just, the charts just look blurry to me. Nothing's making sense. My head is on, some medical test that my kids are getting, or, if my mind is somewhere else, then I just don't trade at all in those conditions, because then that's something that I'm going to let my own psychological stuff get in the way of. Great questions, you guys. Look, there's so many more, too. This is so awesome. I love this stuff. This is so good. I'm so excited that you guys are participating in this conversation because it's really so important. Do I have several trades per time? Sure, you bet. On the dollar pound or the pound yen, will I trade both sides of the Generally speaking, if I have a trade on, say, the pound yen, I'm willing to take a similar trade on the dollar pound, but I'll leave the other side of the cross off. It seems silly to me to duplicate that trade. If I'm long the pound yen, I don't want to also be long the pound dollar and long the dollar yen, because that's two duplicated trades. But I will take, I don't know, say a pound Swiss, a pound yen, and a pound dollar trade at the same time. And if one of them seems to pick up steam and really show all the little connective pieces that I like to see in a trade, then that's the one I'll capitalize on and maybe let the others peter out or just close them out or something like that. Let's see. Jeremy says, in the last couple of weeks, I've been able to correctly determine the trend, drilling down from the bigger time frame to the smaller one. However, I find that while I'm back testing a system, if it doesn't go the way I want it to for, say, 2 or 3 trades, I get discouraged and want to dump the system. How can one keep at it and let the system prove itself? Oh, first of all, Jeremy, I know you've been working hard because you've been in conversation with me about it, and I'm just so glad to know that you're still back testing this stuff. And the other side of that is, this is, consider the fact that when you're trading, even in backtesting, when it stops feeling good and you start to just wonder if you ever were clued in the first place or if you just got lucky or, your system's failing and, all of these little things, consider the possibility that that really isn't the voice of your trading, that it is more likely the voice of something inside of you that said trading was going to be too hard for you anyway. And see, this is proof. I told you so. I mean, somewhere either in your history with someone outside of yourself or maybe even yourself told you you couldn't trade for a living, told you that you couldn't, maybe it wasn't even trading, maybe you wanted to be a writer and they told you you couldn't write, or maybe you whatever, you wanted to move out of the country and they told you that was silly. At some point, you created a belief system for yourself that making a change was too risky, it was stupid, you were not capable of it, you were unable, something along those lines. And consider the possibility that when you start to feel so frustrated that you're like, I just want to abandon this, this is lame, this is stupid, I hate it, is that little voice that's looking for confirmation that they're right and you're wrong. If that's the case, it's okay to take a break from your back testing. Don't trade. Don't take a break from your back testing and go trade live money. But it's okay to take a break and really start to think about what that might mean. I mean, I've had people write letters to this little voice inside of them, or if they know where the voice is coming from, their mother or an old teacher or, whatever. Write letters to that person, not that they'll ever send, but that they can finally just get out and say, you know what, that was then, that was your opinion, that was something else, this is me now, and I get to make these choices about my life right now. I know that sounds a little existential, I know that might sound a little, I don't know, touchy-feely or whatever, but I really do think it makes a big difference to recognize if it's the system you're frustrated with or if it's yourself. Any good written guides about how to perform backtesting? Oh, if you could find me a publisher for my book, there's a great guide in there. I've never found one. I haven't found one. I don't have one. Do you make a living from trading, and do you think everybody can learn this stuff, and for how many years? For the purpose of full disclosure, my trading is a second income to the house. I started trading about 7 years ago, started in the equities market. I got really good at options and moved to Forex. And wanted to move to LA to pursue an acting career and said, you know what, I'm going to revisit my trading. I'm going to really dig in Forex because I just loved it so much. And I'm going to make that my second income. Now, we haven't made the move. We kind of got settled here, and my kids don't want to change schools and stuff. But I just to let you know, just because I fully believe in full disclosure, I don't ever want to try to pretend to be something I'm not. My goal is still to be growing my account, so when I take money out, I don't take out all of my profits. I leave at least half of my profits in so that I'm growing the account, so that someday, if my husband wants to quit his job, he can. That'd be great. The next part of that question is, do I think everybody can learn this stuff? And if so, how many years? I think everyone has something to learn from trading. I'm not absolutely convinced that everyone can learn how to trade for a living. And I do make the distinction because there are certain people that absolutely refuse to make the changes in their life to be so self-disciplined that that they can do it. And they want to continually assume that it's the system's fault, it's the broker's fault, it's the market's fault, it's, you know, whatever outside of themselves that keeps them from trading well. And those people, as long as they're stuck in that place, I don't think that those people will ever become consistently profitable in their trading. Can you give us a tip on how to identify good momentum behind a price move? Well, sure. The thing I like the best about really identifying a pickup in momentum is the bounce, because a break can happen all the time, right? We got a break over here, and price came back. Usually, if you see this kind of excitement on the breakout, look at all of this enthusiasm, right? Now, I'm going to ignore this because actually, I'm not going to ignore it, but I'll talk about it in just a second. I'm going to treat it separately, though. If this had just kind of nudged up here, like this had nudged down, right, and broke out, generally speaking, what I find to be true is when we see enthusiasm on the breakout, we get a retracement to the resistance level. Somewhere in here, we'll get a nice, you know, there's usually an area of indecision. The break out of that second one, that bounce, shows me that there's momentum in that side of the trade. That's when I get enthusiastic about the trade. That's why I was willing to kind of take a position off of this area. You can see how this was a breakup, come back, retest this area, and then it didn't pick up momentum as quickly as I thought it would, but it did finally get some push behind it. Now, before I move on, I do want to talk about why I excluded this, because huge impulsive moves like this, uncharacteristically large movements like this, very, very often, more often than not, will be retraced to in a push that comes soon after. And if it doesn't happen soon after, I really like to keep these areas in mind for when the pair comes back, because usually, even if it trends for a while, these areas still stay really important when the trend starts to get tired and come back. Now, I'm getting beeped at, so I think I'm almost out of time. Holy cow, I'm really out of time. Oh, gosh, I can't get to all of these questions. I'm so sorry. Okay, well, that's fine. Vicky's saying that we do have to wrap this up, and I think I've actually even talked for a full minute after after she sent this. So yes, Shorty, I do have an actual position in the dollar yen. Actually, my position hit the profit target. I'm going to enter another one, especially on this fresh breakout side of here. But that's me, and I don't have time to go into that particular trade. Let's see. Excellent. Okay, good. Well, thanks, guys, for being here. We can talk more about this stuff next week. We can do what we did this week and kind of mesh charts and the psychological stuff. Those of you who have come and come again, I know I say all the time, thank you so much for being here, but I really do mean it. Those of you who are new, I hope you found something useful here. I know that we didn't talk a whole lot about the charts, but I hope there was something in there that you could identify with and take away and improve your own trading, your own lives with it. And thank you, Maud, Adinda, Vicky, for letting me be here and doing the recording. I'll see you next Tuesday, and you guys all be good to yourself. Have a great week. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.